Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, another plane load of Central American refugees arrives in San Diego. What the White House says about what will likely happen to most of the children who came to the border alone.
Plus, Congresswoman Susan Davis joins us for an update on what's happening in Congress and how she thinks the family refugee crisis should be handled. I'm Peggy Pico. Also coming up, San Diego State University is not in full compliance with state law in dealing with sexual assaults. The changes a new state audit recommends.
Sheriff deputies in the East County have a new tool to keep folks alive after a drug overdose, and they're the first in the state to have it. And the Fringe Festival comes to San Diego. 11 intense days of innovative theater. We'll have a look. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Another plane load of refugees from Central America arrived today at San Diego's Lindbergh Field. There were about 140 people aboard the charter flight from Texas. They were bused to a Border Patrol facility in San Isidro for processing. And the small group of protesters waited outside the Border Patrol station in Murrieta this afternoon, just in case any buses showed up there. It was a much smaller and calmer crowd than last Friday, when about half a dozen people were arrested.
We have received more than 10 tons of food, clothing, supplies.
Hundreds of people have been reaching out to help the families, bringing things like clothing, diapers, and food to be given to the migrants as they leave the processing center.
So we want to have the Border Angel people and our friends go by there with teddy bears, a little backpack like you see here, with some supplies and some things for the children and for the mom, so that they realize that here in San Diego they're loved and they're welcome.
Well, I have family that have immigrated from other countries, specifically Central America, so I know that that's where most of the families are coming from. So I think we felt a connection, and maybe like we had to help. It was kind of something we needed to do.
The Border Angels still need more diapers, children's clothing, and toys. Now, the White House says most of the children showing up at the border will likely be sent back to their home countries because they don't qualify for humanitarian relief. Tomorrow, President Obama will send Congress a request for resources to hire more immigration judges and open more detention facilities. But congressional aides say he will not ask Congress to change existing law to let him send the children home faster. House Speaker John Boehner says immigration reform won't be voted on this year. Congresswoman Susan Davis joins Peggy Pico to talk about what's happening in Congress and its impact here in San Diego.
We're inviting members of San Diego's congressional delegation to join us during their 4th of July break to talk about everything from immigration to Afghanistan and recent Supreme Court decisions. Joining me tonight is Congresswoman Susan Davis, California's 53rd District Representative, a senior member of the House Armed Service Committee, and a ranking member of the Military Personnel Subcommittee. Congresswoman Davis, welcome.
Thank you very much, Peggy. Good to be with you.
Well, when you return to Washington, Congress will receive a formal request from the White House for $2 billion in emergency funds to care for the refugee children and families who came across the border from Central America. How will you vote on that request?
Well, I have to see it, of course, and to look at the legislation and see all that's entailed in it. But we do have some costs that we've incurred, and what's important is to process the children and certainly the women, the families, in the most expeditious way we can. And so that's what that money is for.
What is your reaction to the protests? I'm sure you've seen them against processing these immigrants here in Southern California.
Well, the Border Patrol has a job to do, and I think that we need to let them do that job. Part of the difficulty that we're having is that the laws actually have created this process so that children are interviewed and need to be really spoken to about the situation that they're leaving in their home country. That's the law. That's the law that was passed under George Bush and in 2008. We need to take a look at that. We need to see, whether there are some changes that need to be made. But at this time, I think we need to let that play out while we're looking at what we can do to fix this broken system. It is a broken system, and I know that people feel like Congress should act, and unfortunately, we have not had the Speaker bringing forth legislation that allows us to at least conference with the Senate bill and move a bill onto the President's desk.
Do you think the flights, they are continuing from Texas to California to San Diego County to have these children and families processed, do you think that should continue?
Well, I think while we have those children, again, we have a law that tells us that we have to do that. And so until that changes, and I'm not exactly sure how it can change, we have to send a very, very strong message to the traffickers, to the smugglers, to the people who are encouraging parents to do this, that they can't expect that that's going to happen. But we also know that this is a time that some parents are feeling that they have been told they have this window. And if a parent feels that that is their last hope for their child's future, parents do these things.
I know the president, moving on just a little bit, authorized a buildup of U.S. security forces and advisors in Iraq because of the advances of ISIS militants. Do you agree with his decision?
Well, I think we have to have advisors, because if we don't, then we're not going to have any information. And that's critical to knowing where we go from here. We know that the situation there is a terrible one. It's terrible for the refugees. It's terrible for the problems that are created throughout the entire region.
Would you support airstrikes if he goes in that direction?
Well, right now, airstrikes are included under the president's authorization. But I don't think those kind of airstrikes would be done unless they believe that they can isolate the ISIS players and that it could be done without hurting the civilian populations. And that's partly why we need to have advisors, so we know what's going on. The better thing is to get the parties, the stakeholders in that region to share control, to share power, and to move forward on behalf of the Iraqi population. That's what needs to happen.
The Supreme Court, bringing this a little bit home, as with Congress, decision on the Hobby Lobby case allows some corporations to opt out of providing certain forms of birth control to their employees. Some say the ruling could undermine the Affordable Care Act. Would you like to see Congress involved in this, and if so, how?
Well, I think the difficulty is here we have a precedent, and we would have, for religious reasons, people opting out of a law, and it's important that we not do that. I think that there already have been a number of signals sent that people are going to be asking for all kinds of things within the legislation, and that people who are covered on the Affordable Care Act, it's not fair to them that these kinds of changes would occur.
And I want to end on this. It's no secret that there's gridlock in Congress. How does that gridlock affect San Diegans?
I think it affects us all because decisions are not being made. We're not even addressing important issues. Everybody here knows that our immigration system is broken. That has to be fixed. That we could have a bill that would come on the floor when we go back from recess, and we could address a number of the issues that are happening right now, but also the long-term needs that we have in this country. That's probably the biggest one. But even the Highway Trust Fund needs to be addressed. We all have to look to some of our issues with infrastructure as job creators and really helping people here in San Diego. That has to be done, and I certainly hope maybe after this 4th of July that people would come back and they really would have the commitment to do that. It's the only way things are going to get done.
All right, Congresswoman Susan Davis, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Peggy.
A federal appeals court says Arizona cannot deny driver's licenses to young immigrants who can get work permits under an Obama administration policy. The court says the ban violates their equal protection rights. Arizona's governor is considering an appeal. Los Angeles police won't comply with immigration detainers anymore unless they've been vetted by a judge. LAPD joins the San Diego County Sheriff's Department and several other agencies in refusing to automatically detain suspects for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Police Chief Charlie Beck says the change will help build trust in the immigrant community, and Mayor Eric Garcetti says the federal government should be enforcing the laws. Highway Patrol may face a civil rights lawsuit over an incident caught on a cell phone camera. It shows a woman being held on the ground and repeatedly punched by a CHP officer. This happened last week in Los Angeles. The woman's family says her rights were violated. Highway Patrol is investigating the incident, and the CHP commissioner will meet with civil rights leaders in L.A. tomorrow. Drug overdoses are up 50% in the past decade here in San Diego County. Now the Sheriff's Department is the first law enforcement agency in California to carry a device to revive victims long enough to get to a hospital.
People are dying, and if we can give a simple tool, another tool on the belt of a deputy sheriff, like naloxone, and can save a life, we think that's worthwhile.
Deputies at the Santee station will test pilot a nasal spray filled with the antidote. Paramedics and doctors have actually been using this for decades to revive overdose victims. Naloxone is designed to counteract breathing problems when a person overdoses on painkillers and other opiates like heroin. Captain James Beauvais.
We've seen such a large increase in overdoses and drug use related to opiates. From OxyContin, we started seeing prescription medication in families and all over the county.
Because deputies are often the first responder at the scene of an overdose, being able to administer help is vital, says Dr. Sean Evans with Scripps Health.
Minutes mean brain, and minutes mean recovery, and minutes mean ultimately survival.
Dr. Bruce Haynes with County Emergency Medical Services was instrumental in developing the training for deputies.
We've had a really good relationship with the sheriff on this. It's exciting to bring this treatment forward with first responders where it hasn't been before, and we anticipate it's going to be life-saving and helpful.
California lawmakers approved a bill earlier this year allowing law enforcement to carry the device. San Diego Sheriff's Department is the first to take advantage of it. And the pilot program will be conducted for 6 months in the East County to see how effective deputies can be in providing that life-saving care. A magnitude 6.9 earthquake shook parts of southern Mexico, Guatemala, and Central America this morning. There are conflicting reports tonight of how many people died. The count has ranged from 1 to 3 people. The Red Cross in Chiapas, the Mexican state where the quake was centered, said they were treating some frightened adults and children. Officials in Mexico had no immediate reports of damage. The Banner Fire near Julian in San Diego County's East County has been completely contained after destroying 2 homes and burning 217 acres. CAL FIRE also says there were 4 injuries. Investigators still trying to figure out what started the fire last Thursday morning. Believe it or not, it's been nearly 2 months since a series of fires destroyed nearly 50 homes in the North County, and an emergency declaration for those fires is still in place. County supervisors will consider lifting that declaration tomorrow since most of the debris has been cleared away. The city is reminding folks about clearing brush away from their homes. If you live near a canyon or open space, you're supposed to keep a 100-foot defensible space clear of brush and debris. In the next few months, San Diego firefighters will be going door to door doing inspections. You can hear more about the regulations from Fire Chief Javier Maynard tomorrow on Midday Edition on the radio and Evening Edition right here on TV. A federal judge has approved a huge settlement in a lawsuit against the NFL. It would compensate thousands of former players for concussion-related claims. How much each player gets depends on their age and illness. For example, a young retiree with Lou Gehrig's disease would get $5 million. A 50-year-old with Alzheimer's would get $1.6 million, and an 80-year-old with early dementia would get $25,000. Plaintiffs in the case include the family of former Charger Junior Seau, who suffered brain damage after years on the field. For them, the settlement would be capped at $4 million. A recent state audit finds San Diego State University and 3 other schools fail to adequately train employees on how to handle sexual assaults. Peggy Pico takes a closer look at the report and its recommendations.
The state scrutiny of California universities' handling of sexual assault claims came after the U.S. Department of Education found 55 colleges nationwide failed to properly handle sexual abuse complaints. SDSU was not on that list, but the recent audit recommends changes for the university, including more sexual assault training. Joining me for a closer look at dealing with sexual assault on campus is Verna Griffin-Tabor with the Center for Community Solutions, the only rape crisis center in San Diego County. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Verna, the audit found SDSU is not in full compliance with the state law on educating and training employees, students in dealing with sexual assault. What do you think of their findings?
Well, I think it's really consistent with other universities, not only in the state of California, but in the country, in terms of reporting and really educating personnel and staff at the universities.
I want to let folks know that San Diego University declined our request to be on this interview, instead sending a statement that reads, in part, "We appreciate the opportunity to this audit gave us to look at our policies and procedures as they relate to the issues of Title IX, sexual assault and sexual harassment on our campus. There is always room for improvement. The audit provides continued opportunities for this, and we will be following those recommendations." What do you think is the university's responsibility in stopping sexual misconduct on campus?
You know, with the majority of sexual assaults happen to individuals between the ages of 18 and 24. So it really is prudent that the university get to young students as they come on campus quickly and educate and inform. They don't have to, it doesn't have to be fear-based. It's really educating them to the acts of sexual violence and also, if something happens, how to report it.
Well, the National Institute of Justice report in 2007 found that 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted in college. How does the Center for Community Solutions actually respond to sexual assault on local campuses?
When somebody's sexually assaulted, if they call the law enforcement, it's our job to respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, within 20 minutes. As that officer approaches the hospital, so are we, to be through that exam and then through the duration of whatever may exist. If they want to press charges, through law enforcement interviews, prosecutors, courts, and then, of course, healing. If they want to choose counseling, if they want legal assistance, we have a wraparound services that we provide.
What are you hearing from student victims about the challenges of coming forward?
You know, students as well as other individuals for sexual assault, it's very difficult to come forward. They tend to blame themselves. They feel guilty, dirty, ashamed, when in fact, they were the victim. They were not the perpetrators of this type of violence. That's where education and outreach is so important.
The audit made several recommendations, including mandating annual training and additional training for certain employees. What do local colleges need to do in addition to education to prevent sexual assaults?
Besides education, and I want to underscore that the audit found that staff or employees of the university, like resident advisors and coaches, it might be prudent to have them trained because they may be the first place that students go. But also knowing how to respond, making sure resources are readily available, not just brochures, but information posted in dorms, in areas that students congregate is another thing they can do.
What about the line between sexual harassment and sexual assault? Is that clearly understood, do you think, or is talked about on college campuses?
No, I don't think it's clearly understood nor talked about enough, not only in campuses, but in our culture in general.
Is there a link between sexual harassment and assaults?
There can be links between sexual harassment and sexual assault, but every time an actual act of sexual harassment happens doesn't mean it's going to escalate to sexual assault, but it's a warning sign.
What would you like to see local colleges, as far as if you had your way, what would you like to see the next steps be?
I would love to see a lot of what the audit talked about is that all employees for the university are trained in not only sexual assault and sexual harassment, because it really will equip the staff to be able to work with students if they come forward, but also know the local resources. It's got to be debilitating for a staff member at the university if they don't know what to do with a sexual assault or where to turn. Help is available. So I'd love to see not only training, but partnering and outreach in the community.
All right, Verna Griffin-Tabor, thank you so much for updating us on this.
Thank you for having us, and thanks for tackling this tough issue.
Former Assembly Speaker John Perez is asking for a recount of last month's votes for state controller. He came in third place by 481 votes, and he's filed paperwork requesting ballots in 15 countries be recounted. Here in California, any registered voter can request a recount, but they must foot the bill. That recount can be done by a machine or a 4-person panel, and there is no time limit. San Diego Opera will get an extra $100,000 from the city. The extra cash comes from the Commission for Arts and Culture. Just 2 months ago, the commission voted to slash funding for the opera because they said it was unstable. Since then, the opera has restructured and cut its budget, and the commission says it looks more stable. Some legal maneuvering today in the fight over the Los Angeles Clippers. Donald Sterling was trying to get the case moved to federal court, and today a judge said no. So now a state judge is hearing arguments over whether Sterling's estranged wife has the authority to sell the team to former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. NBA owners are supposed to vote on the deal next week. Sterling was supposed to show up to testify today. He didn't. Instead, the court heard from a doctor who says Sterling has Alzheimer's disease.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next news hour, is the GI Bill paying for worthless college degrees for some veterans? That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
The marshmallow war still went on at Ocean Beach Friday night. Despite efforts to stop it, the marshmallows started flying right after the fireworks stopped, but police say there weren't as many marshmallow throwers as in the past. The OB Town Council pushed to cancel the 4th of July tradition because it creates a sticky mess. Volunteers picked up more than 600 pounds of trash in Ocean Beach on Saturday morning. Here are the trash totals from the Surfrider Foundation. They held cleanups in all the beach areas: OB, Pacific Beach, Mission Beach, and Ocean Beach. The biggest mess in OB, but organizers say there was less trash compared to past years. The 4th of July also means a lot of lost dogs. Nearly 100 of them were brought into the county animal shelter over the weekend. We've got a link to the Department of Animal Services website on our website, kpbs.org. San Diego Fringe is in full swing with hundreds of performers from here and abroad providing an intense 11 days of innovative theater. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando checks in on the festival.
For its second year, San Diego Fringe assaults the senses with a wildly diverse array of work. This year, it expands to 80 shows across 11 days at multiple venues.
Fringe is named exactly for the art. It's fringy, it's a little dirtier, it's a little more raw, some of it's a lot more risque, and there's definitely a lot of things that you wouldn't see here. You wouldn't see these shows at the Old Globe, per se. I think what's really exciting about this is that we get the opportunity to see fellow artists in San Diego step outside of their comfort zones. And we also get to be exposed to some really fabulous international artists that have chosen the San Diego Fringe Festival as a place to produce their work.
My name is John Bennett. I'm from Australia, but I tell people I live on the wind. Oh, every festival is very different. This one is good because it's very young, so everybody is really enthusiastic. Everyone's very excited by what's happening this year because it's only the second year that it's been going.
About half of the artists are local, so these are kind of homegrown. It's like San Diego craft beer. This is like San Diego craft theater.
Fringe festivals are not juried, I think, is that the right word? Where anyone can do it. So anyone can sign up as long as you get in the lottery. These are sort of the ragtag bunch of crazy performers where you can get any kind of show. But there's lots of crazy performance pieces and dance and puppetry and all. It covers a broad spectrum of different theater work.
What I was doing was more fitting for Fringe Festival, which is supposed to be the weirder acts and the really out there stuff. So I wanted to create something that had both the things that I felt were beautiful and also the things that people thought were disgusting, and tried to let them see the beauty in it, because I try to find the beauty in that.
San Diego Fringe continues through July 13th. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
The Weather Service is still warning about high surf along our North County beaches until about 11 o'clock tonight. And strong rip currents are expected to continue tomorrow as well. It's going to be humid again. Beach temperatures mostly in the low to mid 70s, low 80s for the inland valleys through Thursday. As for the mountains, upper 80s there tomorrow, and a chance of thunderstorms on Wednesday. The desert also has a chance of thunderstorms tomorrow and Wednesday, clearing to sunshine by Thursday and temperatures in the triple digits for the hot desert areas. Let's do a quick recap of our top stories tonight. Another plane load of refugees from Central America arrived this afternoon at San Diego's Lindbergh Field. There were about 140 people aboard the charter flight from Texas. They actually arrived here earlier this morning. They were bused to a border patrol facility in San Ysidro for processing. Now, tomorrow, President Obama will ask Congress to approve spending for more immigration judges and more facilities to handle the influx of immigrants. And sheriff's deputies in Santee now have a tool to revive overdose victims long enough to get them to a hospital. They are the first officers in the state to carry a nasal spray filled with Naloxone, which can help victims keep breathing after an overdose. And of course, you can find tonight's stories located on our website. That's kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.